Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Collingwood Conversations. We were originally Floria Pika, but it was a nightmare to try and spell for people. So welcome to the first, you could say, rendition of Collingwood Conversations. We've got very special guest, 2010 Premiership player, 2011 All-Australian, Ben Reid. Thanks for joining us. And how's your day been?
Thanks for having me on, guys. It's been really good. I've just been on dad duties all day. I got a 4-month-old, so we're not chasing him around, but just doing the nappies and the feeding and all that sort of all the fun stuff. So no, it's been a good sort of day.
Very nice, very nice. So let's get stuck into the questions. First question is, what was the draft like? You know, on the night, were you nervous, anxious, sort of stuff?
Well, it was a lot different back then to what it is now. I was actually obviously grew up in Brighton, a country town, and we got a 60-acre property out there. Had a few mates come around in the morning, and I was pretty much sitting there eating bacon and eggs and listening to the old dial-up internet.
Uh-huh.
And I had a few connection problems back then, and then I was literally sitting there eating, and then pick 8 come around. All my mates, I didn't even hear it. All my mates erupted, and then I had a phone call pretty much straight away from who I thought was Mick Moldhouse, but it was actually Alan Didak and Ben Johnson acting as Mick Moldhouse. So
the Rat Pack starting early.
Yeah, it started real early. So I got a fair awakening to what I was going to come into. But look, really exciting day, and I then. I pretty much the next day packed up, and as a 17-year-old, didn't have a license, lived at home my whole life, packed up and went down to Melbourne as a 17-year-old in year 11. So,
wow.
Yeah, pretty different.
That's really, like, as you were saying, must have been chalk and cheese comparison. So what was it like that first year after being drafted, going from country town to city living?
Yeah, it was a fair wake-up call. I used to, mum washing and drying all my things and cooking and all those little bits and pieces. And I moved into a house with Tyson Goldsack, Brent McCaffer, and Nathan Brown.
Yep.
So we moved into a house in Williamstown, so they were good enough to drive me around a little bit, being a 17-year-old and the training and home. But look, it was a massive, massive change for a country boy. The first pre-season, every weekend I got a chance, I pretty much came home.
Yep.
So, sorry, boys, it's the baby.
That's okay.
It was a massive change for us, and but you had to get used to it. Like, you go to the biggest club in Australia, and you walk in, and Nathan Buck was there, Anthony Rocker, James Clement, all these sort of guys. So it was a huge change.
I can absolutely imagine that. And what was it like, speaking of Buckley and also Malthouse that you mentioned just before, what was it like being coached by both of them, and what were the differences between them in their coaching styles?
Yeah, both different. Mick was, the way I sort of look at it, I don't know if you follow soccer, but a bit like a manager. He'd delegate a lot of things to the other assistant coaches. Really good motivator. His pre-game stuff, it really gets you up and going. So a real sort of teacher as well, and a bit of like a father figure in a way. You can sort of go and he's got all those, I suppose, knowledge of from way back. Whereas Bucks was sort of more your hands-on approach type thing. And I think Bucks sort of transitioned towards the end to be more of a delegated the roles and responsibilities to more of the assistants.
Mm-hmm.
And he got better at that as he went along. So both different, but both really good in their own right.
Yeah, awesome. And speaking of obviously coaching and whatnot, Collingwood definitely paved the way for high altitude training in the preseason during your time at Collingwood. What was it like those first few years going over to America and doing that high altitude stuff?
Yeah, tough. I think the first one I remember going, I went for about 2 weeks, and 2 weeks with 40 blokes living in each other's pockets. By about the 7th or 8th day, you're starting to really teeter on, I want to kill this bloke.
Who was your roommate?
I had a few. I can't remember. I had Scott Pendlebury 1 year.
Yep.
And a big thing that I always tell people that reminds me of Pendles is he'd always be shaving his legs and making sure he's crystal clean all the time. And even things like getting his leg right up on the kitchen sink and getting into all other different places. So, that's Pendles for you. But look, some of that stuff. But they were really good, like really good way to bond. They were hard work, but they were rewarding as well. And we get away, and we used to go away. I think it was usually about 10 days before the Chrissy break.
Yep.
So we get 2 weeks or 10. It then went down to about a week or 10 days training. After the first couple, it sort of went a bit too long, so they cut it a bit shorter. But it was sort of good. You go into that, then you go into Christmas break, and it almost feels like a longer break, and you get more refreshed.
Nice.
It was really good fun.
That's awesome. And obviously they were hosted at Utah and Arizona. Which of those in particular did you prefer?
Well, at the start, it was the first one was a university, so all the young boys liked that one.
Mm-hmm.
You can sort of, a few dorm parties here and there at the end of the trip, which was always a bit of fun. But no, look, I liked it both. They're both different, and it was always good to just get out and be able to travel.
Yeah.
Where as a young kid, that's sort of country now. I was lucky enough to travel as a kid, but I've never been over there. So some places I got to see, which is a bonus of being part of an AFL system.
That's amazing. I've only got a few more questions for you because I won't take up too much more airtime for the other lads. The first one is, how did it feel for you every time when you played against the Swans and inevitably you ended up more or less being positioned against your brother because you were a defender, he was a forward? What was it like going up against Sam?
It's different, very different. I always hope he goes well. And in those games, I would want him to have a shit one. So, but I played on him. I don't know how many. We probably played each other 4 or 5 times, and I reckon you only ever kick 1 goal on me. So I've always just said that to him. But I absolutely loved it. Probably worse for mum and dad than me and Sam, to be honest.
Yeah, because they would have been like, "Don't hurt each other."
Pretty much.
And last one I've got for you until I pass it off to the other lads is, how's retirement going so far? And, what have you been up to since retirement?
Yeah, look, I've really enjoyed it. I've moved back to Bright where I grew up. Me and my wife moved back here pretty much as soon as the hub finished. We moved back. We bought a house up here about 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And moved into that. And I've jumped back into footy. I'm coaching the Wangaratta Magpies and the Ovens and Murray footy.
Nice.
Footy league. And
that's your junior club, isn't it? The Wangaratta Magpies?
I was across the road actually at the Rovers. So
okay.
Rivals, exactly. So, but look, I'm really enjoying that. It's been really good fun to come back to community sport and get involved with it and give back to grassroots footy in a way, and still have a kick out there as well. And it's just a great feel. It's what footy really is, that footy club feel, and really enjoying it. And we've got a business in town, a yoga and Pilates studio, my wife and I running, and so enough to keep us busy. And obviously just had a format. We've got a baby, so plenty to keep us busy at the moment.
Nice. Can we maybe see the boy go into the father-son draft in 20 years' time, do you reckon?
There might be a few actually, because Blair's had a little one. He's had a boy as well. Howie's had a boy. Pendles has obviously got a boy. So there's a fair few boys coming through.
Hey, and didn't Steele just have a kid, or was that a daughter?
He had a little girl.
Oh, yeah. Maybe father-daughter.
Maybe father-daughter. I think they brought that up with 50 games, or is it something like
that? I think it's 50, yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. There might be even more then. So fingers crossed.
Hey, that'd be wicked to see the Rat Pack generation 2. Right, so I'll pass it off to Hutto for his questions for you. Go, take it away, Hutto.
No worries. Thanks for being on again, Ben. Really appreciate it. My first question for you was, you obviously recruited to the club as a forward, started your career there, went back and then sort of finished your career as a forward again. Where did you prefer to play when you played?
Yeah, well, I came in forward, and I was probably really underdeveloped, to be honest. When I got drafted, I think I was only about 78 kilos at the same height I am. So, I was really underdeveloped in terms of physically and probably mentally as well. And forward's obviously probably the hardest position to play, and played there. There's, Travis Cloak, Anthony Rocker, Sean Rusling when I came in, a couple of others as well that were probably ahead of me. And I had a couple of older defenders that Wakes, Jimmy, Presti, who were getting on a little bit, and thought, well, maybe we'll try him down back. So I think it was 2008 from memory. I went down late in the season, played down back in the VFL and went okay. And then 2009, I played the whole year pretty much in the VFL as a defender. Played 2 games, both as a forward, ironically, at AFL level. But then able to come in the next year, and probably when my career really started to take off in 2010 when I started to play, 7 weeks of footy. So that probably come about in terms of needs, and a little bit I probably wasn't coming on as quickly as they probably would have hoped in terms of the forward stuff. And then, as you said, going down forward, that was a little bit to do probably because we had no forwards at the time either. Travers retired. We had a couple, there weren't too many key position players at the club at all. So played obviously a half year down, went all right, and then probably got pigeonholed a little bit there. But I did prefer playing down back. It's where I played my best footy, thought I read the game well, and that sort of thing. So, but as I say, you do what's best for the team, and that was probably the scenario at that time.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously you grew up in a pretty prominent VFL family with your father, grandfather, uncle all playing, and then your brother being drafted into the AFL system. Most of your family played Footscray. Were you a Footscray fan growing up, or?
I wasn't actually. Somehow I was an Essendon supporter. So probably that baby Bombers sort of thing. A lot of the blokes I went to school with were Essendon supporters. So I ended up being an Essendon supporter, but I sort of, I probably had the Bulldogs as my second team, so to speak, with Dad playing with them. And I mean, Dad didn't really care. He's never a mad into footy type sort of guy. He was sort of, enjoyed playing it. Coached Sam and I as a junior, but just one of those things.
If you don't mind me interjecting real quick, what team did Sam follow growing up?
He followed his brother, so Essendon.
Forced into it.
Yeah, exactly. Probably had the buddy control. I probably had my knee on his neck or something saying go.
Typical big brothers.
Yeah.
So I think you sort of covered this one anyway, but my next question was, before 2010, you hadn't really played much in the back line, and then 2010 you went into the back line, won a premiership. Was that something the club had sort of telegraphed much that year, or was it sort of just you were just hoping to get a spot anywhere you could get a spot?
Yeah, like I said before, like 09 VFL, I think I was emergency that year 13, 14 times, and just didn't get a look in purely because there was guys in front of me that were older, more experienced, that sort of thing, and didn't get an opportunity. And then the next year, I got an opportunity. Actually, I think I played round 1 and 2 and then got dropped, and then came back in again the following week. So I certainly had to work for it. And then not until probably halfway through the year, I probably started to feel comfortable in the role, and then was lucky enough to be part of a really special year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you did a great job in both grand finals too, so it's a bit unfortunate they don't give votes to defenders anymore.
With a broken fibula, mind you, as well. I think you did a fucking amazing job.
Definitely. So obviously, speaking of injuries, you were injured in 2011 in the prelim final. How much do you feel that actually affected you in the grand final, especially playing against someone like Tom Hawkins, who's so good at sort of just mauling and fighting guys out of the way?
I did a fitness test on the Thursday, and I didn't really get injured, so to speak, in the prelim. I had a bit of tightness in my sort of groin and that sort of thing. So in terms of an actual injury, I was, I wouldn't say 100%, but you never are that time of year. But I certainly didn't have a strain or anything like that. And then going into the game, I actually felt really good. And the first quarter, I felt like I was running around really well. And towards the end of the second quarter, the first quarter, I can't remember actually, it was that long ago. But I've gone for I went for a diving spoil, and I've just felt my groin just absolutely sort of give way a little bit, and a little tear there. So obviously I strapped that up and just tried to soldier on as best I could. And unfortunately, Tommy had a day out, and they just overran us in the end. I think, we had a few guys a bit sore that day. Not that it's an excuse or anything, but they certainly, played the better footy for the majority of the day, which is obviously why they got the win in the end.
Yeah, definitely. It's always a bit harder to play when you're feeling a bit sore too. Sorry, my next question here is, so you're obviously always going to be a big part of Collingwood history, drought-breaking premiership, huge win. I lived in Melbourne at the time. I couldn't get over how big it was, and it had been so long. Is that something now that you've retired, you've had a bit more time and sort of feels like more of an accomplishment now when you look back on it, sort of how big that was?
Yeah, probably. When you're playing, you probably, especially think I was 22 when we won it, and you probably think it's going to happen every single year.
It almost did the second year.
Yeah, it almost did. And I mean, even 2012, we were only a couple of goals off another grand final. So, but you sort of think it's going to happen all the time. But when you finish, you can sit back and sort of reflect on your career a little bit and things you're proud of and all that sort of thing. And like you said, it's one of those things that forever that group's going to be together, held together by that premiership. And we actually still haven't had our 10-year reunion because it's been ruined from the last couple of years. So from COVID. So hopefully we can do something soon for it. But we did. I think we had from 5-year to 9-year reunions anyway. And there's a great bunch of guys. Like, there are a bunch of guys that you don't even have to speak to for a year, and you catch up with them and nothing's changed.
Yeah.
So it's really special to be part of, and really lucky as well, because there's plenty of guys out there that don't get the opportunity that we got.
Definitely. I think CJ's going to pass you on to someone else now, but thank you very much once again.
Thanks, mate.
Yep, that's Hardo's questions. And actually, we've got 2 questions from fans before we pass it off to Shipper and Jesus, brain farting hard. He'll kill me if I forget him, but Keezy. So the first question is from Trev. He actually runs a Collingwood Facebook group, and he asks, in your time at Collingwood, who was the biggest pest at the club?
Hey, sure, it's pretty easy one, that one.
Oh, absolutely. Any stories?
I reckon 99% of blokes say hey, sure.
Yep. Any stories in particular?
Oh, there's too many to even count one. Lots of sort of pick. I'm trying to think. It's just forever annoying. Like, you can say something and he'll turn it into something that's taking the piss out of you or something like that. Like,
yeah.
It might be something even as simple as what's for breakfast, and he'll say something, some smart ass comment. He's always been that way, but he made the footy club so much fun, Heater, and it was so much fun and always a laugh when he's there. So yeah, he was up there, and Dale Thomas was another pest as well. He was a pest too. So yeah.
That's fair. And another fan submitted question by Traz. He says, it's a bit of a long one. With your career being riddled by injury towards the end, did you ever consider moving either north to Queensland or to WA to warmer climates for your body?
It's a fair point. I actually said to my wife when we were up in the hub, I said, geez, I reckon I could have got another couple of years out of myself if I moved up into here. I was recovering better than ever. But no, look, maybe towards the end I did have thought that maybe go up north to Gold Coast or something like that. But I was really keen on just being a one club player.
Yeah.
Probably got to the stage where I was 12, 13 years in. I probably only had 1 or 2 left anyway. So I thought, why not fight tooth and nail to get a couple more years out of Collingwood and retire as a one club player and premiership player, and something that I'm really proud of doing.
That's awesome. And I'll pass it over to Shipper for his questions for you.
Right. Thanks for joining us again, Ben. My first question is about being a premiership player. We always sort of imagine as fans, like, if you ever sort of achieved that, you wouldn't have to pay for a beer again in your life. Do the locals around Wangaratta and Bright look after you in that kind of perspective? Do you get the sort of accolades that we sort of hope that you get?
Yeah, certainly people always ask you that first question, what was it like playing in a premiership? I think at every pub you walk into and someone you speak to asks that question. To be honest, I've probably got too many tight-ass mates up here to shout me a beer. So I'm probably buying them beers most of the time. But yeah, look, it is something that, like you said, everyone asks it. But why wouldn't you? I mean, even me watching it now, as I suppose as a retired player watching last year, I had a best mate of mine who's a Melbourne supporter. And just to see the emotions he had, and I probably never thought about it that way until you sort of see him going through it and how long they had to wait. So now I can sort of see what you guys went through.
However, though, the Melbourne fans, sure, they had to wait 56 or whatever years it was. They didn't have to wait an extra week because there was a draw, which I've got one quick question. How did it feel at the end of that game with the draw? I think, sorry, that may have been one of Shipper's. Sorry, was that one of your questions?
Keep going, that's right. Yeah.
Sorry about that shit. Sorry, but
you're right, keep going.
How did it feel at the end of that game in particular? Because Mick, as Shipper did tell us the other day, that he let you feel those emotions after it. What was it like?
was the most taxing game I've ever been a part of. Like I was absolutely spent after the game, and I remember just laying down and sort of going, "Fuck, we've got to go again next week." But it was probably more in a way we just got on with it. Like you said, Mick, we went back and went to the function after it. Tried to relax a little bit with family and friends, and it's probably a really good thing to do because we're able to get our mind off the game straight away and start talking to friends and just recovering, have some dinner, catch up with everyone. And that was pretty much a normal week after that. No parade, all that sort of thing. It was and younger bodies too, I reckon, which probably helped us, I reckon, in terms of recovery. But yeah, it was a strange feeling. Like he probably had a footy trip planned the next Saturday, and then we had to cancel it. So
I was going to say, I interviewed Chris Dawes, and he said he was rushing the next day to phone call and change the bookings.
We all were. I think we all were going to Bali, and then we had to postpone it for a week later. And we probably only had 3 or 4 days in Melbourne after that because then we had to go the next week. So it was a different celebrations, but it was an awesome experience. And it'll probably, it's never going to happen again, is it? Because they're not doing it now.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
So go ahead, Shipper. Sorry about that.
No, that's all right. I did have an extra little bit to that question. Sort of both coaches or some media sort of reported that the approaches were a bit different between Collingwood and St Kilda, and Mick sort of allowed you guys to sort of feel the pain and kind of deal with your emotions there, whereas St Kilda were sort of straight up and we're going to get ready for next week. And like I sort of perceived that as maybe a difference. Did you feel like that at all? That had something to do with the next week?
Yeah, I think it did. As I sort of said, then Mick just said, let's go to the function. Give back. The fans there as well. Give back to them, family. They've been a part of. They've gone through the day as well, and go and relax and chill out a little bit. So we went back and did recovery and that sort of thing. And the next morning, I think, we were straight into recovery as well. So we didn't really change our recovery process too much. It was more just to go back and relax a little bit, unwind. Probably didn't dwell on it as much as what what you might think we did. Because at the end of the day, we didn't lose, and there's always next week. So we just had to get back on the horse and recover well, train well during the week, and try and put in another good performance. And luckily, we did.
Beautiful. My next question: you experienced most of your success at a young age, so Premiership and All Australian in your early 20s. What advice would you give to young players entering the AFL system now?
Just to soak in as much as you can and learn off all the older guys around you. The guys who come in the AFL now are a lot more advanced than what I was when I was coming in. I mean, the way they're set up and the pathway now is a heap better than when I came through. Even seeing the Murray Bush Rangers here in Wang, it's a lot different. But it would just be soak it all in, enjoy it, enjoy every moment. It only happens once. The average lifespan of football is 3 or 4 years, so you don't get very long in the game. So if you have a long career, you're really lucky. But just to enjoy it every bit, learn as much as you can, work as hard as you possibly can when you get there. Just enjoy the ride, because it's something that you're never going to get to experience again for the rest of your life.
Beautiful. Who would you rate as your toughest opponent? Had some key roles with the Reid at St Kilda and at a few of the big games there. Would you rate him as your toughest opponent? Or?
Yeah, running-wise, he was unbelievable. You just get up and just keep going. Lance Franklin was on another level. Played on him a few times, and he was one that when the ball hit the ground is different to other key forwards. When the ball hits the ground and probably 80% of your job's done. But when the ball hits the ground with him, probably only 20% of your job's done. He's gonna pick it up and swing it around with his left and kick it from 60 or something. So he's definitely one of the toughest. Jack Reid's another one. He's really crafty the way he plays. Does little movements here and there and just works almost in a phone box type thing with his movements. But he's really good at just getting in your blind spot. So there's a couple of obviously played on a fair few. Matt Pavlich I played on one day early on. Jonathan Brown. So there's certainly some good forwards there.
What was it like playing against Travis after he'd played in the grand final with you in 2010?
it was weird. We're good mates, me and Trav. So we caught up before the game and we were sort of talking. He goes, "You playing on me?" I said, "I am, mate. Yeah." And then he obviously kicked the first goal. And I remember just going, "Oh, that'd be right." And he sort of, we had a bit of a chuckle after that as well. But it was weird. I mean, we played each other for 10 years. Playing on each other a lot of training. He's one of we're probably the two of the most sweaty individuals going around. Yep. So in terms of our training and that sort of thing, when we literally say we sweated on each other and all that sort of stuff, we literally did. Like we were disgusting how wet we were. So he's a ripper, Trav, and it was good fun.
That's awesome. Shipper, are you done with your questions, or do you have a few more for him before we drop in Keezy's questions?
Yeah, I think I'm done. Thanks so much, Ben. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, mate.
So the questions from Keezy. First one is, what did it mean representing Collingwood in a flag and being part of back-to-back grand finals, even though there wasn't a win the year after, but making it the following year in general?
Yeah, it was. I mean, like I said, we had 2 or 3 years there, and you'd possibly say 4, well, even 13. We did lose that first final, but I still think we still had a team that could have went further. So we had 2 or 3 years there where we were right up the top, prelim in 2012 as well. So it was a really good time with the footy club, really successful. I mean, a lot of time I only look at premierships as being successful, but
just making finals is success.
Yeah, exactly. So you look at two grand finals, 1 premiership, a draw. So we got to experience all 3 results as well, which is not many people get to experience that. But, but look, like really, great things to be involved in. Even if you lose a grand final, I think to even get there is still an accomplishment.
Yeah.
They're so hard to win, and the grand finals are so hard to get to as well. But it was a really good experience and something that I'll remember forever.
Yeah, absolutely. And you dabbled just before talking about how you and Trav are good mates. He brought up a question that says, were you ever part of the bicycle crew? Who else was a part of it? And did they have a name?
No, I wasn't. But they were called something. I can't remember what it was called now. It was him, Cameron Wood, and Goldie and Twos.
Yep.
And I can't remember what they were called. The Beaks. I think it was the Beaks or something. Yeah.
And he's got 2 other questions. John McCarthy was a big part of the club. How did you cope with the loss of him, and what was it like during that finals period after the tragic loss?
Yeah, that was really hard. J-Mac was a good mate of ours and was there for a few years. And I remember the day leading into that to the semi against West Coast, I think it was. We got called into an office and we literally thought, who's stuffed up here? Because it was just all the young boys who were obviously close with J-Mac, and Purdy basically just said to us, John McCarthy's been passed away in Vegas. So, we were all in shock, in tears, and then the rest of the team walked in and, it was a really, really tough time to be a part of, and, he'll be remembered forever at Collingwood and Port Adelaide as well.
Yeah.
Just a really good person, part of a really good family, and someone that's greatly missed.
Absolutely. Like, I can't obviously even begin to imagine, because you were so close to him as a player, and you hate to see anyone pass away. And as a fan of Collingwood, granted he played for Port, but, he also played for Collingwood, and that makes him part of our history. It was on that day I was dumbfounded. I was like, what? He was so young, sort of thing. So I can only imagine what you were going through. And the last question Keezy has is, a lot of sportsmen follow other sports or leagues, such as, NBA, NRL, etc. Who are your top 5 sportsmen outside the AFL, in your opinion?
Geez, that's a very tough question. There's so many of them. I'm a big NBA guy, so growing up, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Michael Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
I love Tiger Woods, golf. I love
handicap.
I'm an absolute hack golfer, mate. Like us, I go and play with Steele and Tidy every now and then, and they I'm nowhere near in their league, put it that way. And who's the 5th? I don't know. Well, that's a tough one. Cricket-wise, Ricky Ponting, Shane Warne, those sort of guys grew up watching as well, so idolising them a little bit. But I'm big NBA. Basically, I follow is the other sport I follow.
Yep. No, that's fair. Obviously, being told, did you, obviously, stupid question, play basketball growing up as well as Aussie rules?
Yeah, I played a bit of basketball and rep basketball here and there. I was nowhere near as good as Pendles, but no, yeah, I enjoyed it, and it's a really good game. It's a fun game to play.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I guess two last questions we've got is this is from Casey though, is looking back on your career, now that you're a few months, well, more or less half a season retired now, what's your personal highlight from your career?
Personal highlight. There's a few of them. I mean, most people probably think you go straight to the Premiership and that sort of thing as being the biggest highlight. First game is a big highlight as well. You've actually worked there as a kid and got there and played your first game. But I've had a few, but honestly, just to finish as a one club sort of player and have all the mates you get out of footy. And although you don't walk away sort of 50 really close ones, the ones you do walk away, they're mates for your life and that sort of thing. So, yeah, they're the highlights for me, and the day-to-day stuff at the footy club, the laughs. There's not a job in the world you go to where you can talk shit all day pretty much.
And get paid for it.
And get paid and go and kick a footy. So that's a highlight itself. So, I really, really enjoyed that. And that's probably the part I miss the most is that day-to-day stuff. Not so much the, playing and that sort of thing. It's,
camaraderie type stuff.
Massage table, talking shit, and jumping in the spa and having a laugh in there, that sort of thing. So,
and how have you adjusted? Sorry, side question, but how have you adjusted to the lack of that since retirement?
I probably struggled a little bit early in terms of just having no regime in front of you. Like, you have that pretty much since I was 17 till 30. Was I 32 when I retired? So 14, 15 years of knowing exactly what I was doing day in, day out. And then it goes away, and you sort of wake up and go, oh, better find something to do today. Until you start getting into some work and doing a little bit away from and that sort of thing. But that's probably what coaching. I jump back into coaching, that sort of thing. That's helped me as well in terms of finding, something else to do and help other people. So yeah.
Yeah, nice. I just thought of, again, another question, which I've got. So this will be the last one because we've already gone with the advice, which I was going to go with advice, but Shipper asked that, so I'll edit that to the end of the episode. This one I'll edit somewhere in the middle. Is 2011, you played against Geelong in the grand final against Travis Varco. And then later on in his career, you would go on to play with Travis Varco. What was it like on both ends of that, playing against and with him?
Well, I didn't know Trav personally when he was at Geelong. So when you're sort of playing against someone you don't really know, it's just like another guy and a jumper, really, on the opposite side. And then when he come in, Trav was just a really, really good fella, like a really personal guy, really caring about everybody, gave his time to everybody, was willing to listen to everybody, and obviously did some pretty special things for us as well. So, he's a ripper, Trav, and he was good fun to play with too. I actually had a bit of good chemistry with Trav, and knowing what he wanted to do when he had the footy, it was always really good and communicator forward of the footy. He came from obviously a really good forward line at Geelong and tried to pass some knowledge down when he got to Collingwood.
Yeah, fair. Hutto, is there any final question that you would like to ask him?
Sorry, I was just thinking about Travis Varco. I always thought he was probably the smartest bloke we had play for us when he played. He just always seemed to be a step ahead of everyone. And it was just a pleasure to watch. Final question. Sorry, I was off in my own little world there. No, I don't really so much have any final questions. Just hearing you talk about your transition from becoming a player to for lack of a better term, a civilian, is really, for me, is really something that stands out. Obviously, I spent 15 years in the Defence Force, and it's sort of the same. You spend so much of your life having everyone tell you where you've got to be, what you've got to do, what you're supposed to be wearing, to just, wow, what do I do now? And it's so good to hear that, like, it's a regular occurrence for so many other people too. Just that big hole in your life of, what am I supposed to do? I'm in my 30s, sort of and what's next? Yeah.
Well, when you think about it, like, well, especially for me, I sort of grew into if you want to call it a man or, an adult and that sort of thing in my time at Collingwood. So it was almost, half my life just about has been spent at Collingwood. So, I went from year 11 as well, didn't have a gap year or anything like that. So it was sort of school, but in footy terms. You're there at 8 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, you go home at 3. So Yeah, that was my life. So that took some getting used to.
Yeah, well, and
Yeah, definitely.
And Shipper, any final questions or question for him?
Yeah, I did kind of skip one on my list. What were your thoughts on the succession plan from Malthouse to Buckley? How do you feel that was sort of managed from the club perspective?
Yeah, it was different. I suppose after going into, grand finals, probably was the biggest surprise for us. The Mick was obviously coaching really well, and I was getting a lot out of that group. Personally, I thought he probably could have coached again, but that was left to the powers that be. Yeah, that's history now, and that's the way it worked out. But it was a strange time, knowing that when we lost, that was his last game as coach. So really strange.
Wow.
Beautiful. Thanks for that one.
And I think that about wraps it up, because I know Ben has to go in a few minutes. So I'll quickly say thank you very much, Ben, for your time. And if you like, at the end of the season, once the season's all done and dusted, we'll get you on for a Collingwood season, either recap or a next year's season preview sort of thing, if you're interested.
Yeah, no worries at all, guys. Thanks for having me on. Enjoyed it.
No, thank you.
All right, thanks, Ben.
Take
Thanks,
care.
guys. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll beat you out so that way you don't have to bother with that. Have a good one, mate. Take care. Rightio. So I'm just going to quickly click stop recording.